What's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday to everyone. Hopefully, everyone is staying safe. If you took a COVID test, hopefully you tested negative. If you're currently battling COVID, I hope you have a full and speedy recovery. Yesterday, on the pandemic update, we briefly showed you an AARP list of coronavirus related restrictions in every state. Today, I thought we would go through some of these states. We're not going to go through all 50 states. We would be here for well over an hour if we did that. But we're going to look at some of them. Some still have restrictions in place. You might be surprised. Others do ban restrictions from going into place, such as mask mandates or vaccine requirements. Starting off with Alabama, it says vaccine and testing regulations. State law bars local governments, schools, and businesses from requiring proof of vaccination as a condition for admission or to receive goods or services, and grants workers broad rights to get religious or medical exemptions to workplace vaccine mandates. Alaska, you are not allowed to show proof of vaccination. Places are not allowed to require you to show proof of vaccination to travel in or around the state. Arizona, guess what? There are no vaccine. You're not allowed to do a vaccine requirement there either. And it says for mask regulations, Ducey, that was the former governor of Arizona, signed a measure in April 2022 banning face covering orders for minors. School districts and local governments cannot require anyone under the age of 18 to wear a mask without a parental consent. He signed legislation the following month prohibiting mask mandates in buildings run by state or local government. So mask mandates are basically a no-no there. Arkansas, vaccine and testing regulations. Then Governor Asa Hutchinson signed a bill that prohibits states and local agencies from requiring proof of vaccination to travel, participate in education, or receive services. Mask regulations. Hutchinson signed a bill that bans state and local mask mandates, but it was overturned by a state judge in 2021. So how about that? And California, this is a relatively important one. Vaccine and testing regulations. State employees must be vaccinated against COVID-19 or submit to regular testing. A statewide vaccine mandate for healthcare workers ended on April 3rd of this year, but vaccination remains a requirement for healthcare staff in Los Angeles County. Additionally, the city of Oakland requires proof of vaccination to enter senior adult care facilities and senior centers. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting. Mask regulations. As of April 3rd, the state no longer requires masking in healthcare and long-term care facilities, emergency and homeless shelters, and jails and prisons. So masking, if you live in California, your masking is now optional in healthcare. Sorry to have to tell you that. And it also says here, Oakland requires people age 6 and older to wear masks in city-owned facilities, including libraries, senior centers, and recreation centers through at least July 1st. Healthcare workers in Los Angeles and Santa Clara counties are required to mask up during patient care or when they are in patient care areas. So how about that? Oakland still has city-owned facilities requiring masks. So wow, it's pretty remarkable at this stage in the ball game to still see that. Colorado, vaccine and testing regulations. The State Board of Health ended a vaccine requirement for healthcare workers in July. I'm assuming this is July of last year. And then we come down to masking regulations. The state dropped its mask mandate for healthcare facilities back in October, so there is no more masking in healthcare there. Connecticut, vaccine and testing regulations. A vaccine mandate for state employees and staff at schools and child care facilities ended in April of 2022, as most of Governor Ned Lamont's COVID-related executive orders expired. Mask regulations. A face covering requirement for healthcare facilities, long-term care facilities, and shelters ended in April 2022. Now, here's where it gets kind of interesting. So they ended it in the long-term care facilities and healthcare, but yet they just reinstated it. It's supposed to be up for review today. They reinstated it in the state's Capitol building. So they're requiring it in the state's Capitol building but not in healthcare facilities in the state there. How about District of Columbia? Vaccine and testing regulations. District government employees, contractors, and interns must be fully vaccinated and get a booster shot when eligible. Healthcare workers and employees and volunteers in K through 12 schools also must meet vaccination requirements. Individuals may be exempt from the vaccine mandates because of religious beliefs or medical conditions. How about in healthcare settings? Mask regulations, face covering is required in healthcare facilities when when the COVID-19 community level is rated high by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So they're using the CDC community transmission map, I assume. The newer one, not the old one. Remember, the old one no longer exists. All right, Florida. Do I even need to read over this? Florida, you're not allowed to do a vaccine mandate. Florida, you're not allowed to do a mask mandate whatsoever. Georgia is somewhat similar. You're not allowed to do a vaccine mandate for the most part, and that law is in effect through 2023. Here's the mask requirements. KEM's August 2021 order also allows bars, local governments from enforcing mask mandates on private business without the business's consent. He signed legislation in March 2022 that allows parents to decide whether their children wear a mask in school, even if the local school district implements a mandate. An indoor mask mandate enforced in Athens and Clark County during periods of high COVID-19 transmission expired on October 6th. I'm assuming that's last year, or maybe the year before, I don't know. Hawaii. Now, here you go. If you're going to be traveling to Hawaii, here's what you need to know. Vaccine and testing regulations. Democratic Governor David Ige's order that state employees show proof of vaccination or undergo regular testing was lifted on March 25th of 2022, as were all vaccine testing and quarantine requirements for travel to Hawaii. Mask regulations. Hawaii's statewide mask mandate, the last in the country, expired on March 25th of 2022. Illinois, this is a more populated state, vaccine and testing regulations, a requirement that unvaccinated staff at healthcare and long-term care facilities get tested weekly for COVID-19 was lifted by the governor on October 17th of last year. How about some mask regulations? Face covering is no longer required in healthcare and long-term care facilities. Per the governor's orders on October 17th, masks are recommended at facilities in areas of high community spread. How about we come down here to Iowa? Iowa is a more far-right state, so chances are Iowa probably is not going to allow vaccine mandates or any of this stuff. And it's not also not allowing mask regulations as well. How about Louisiana? No current regulations. The governor, Edwards, ended the state's emergency public health order in March 2022. There are no state vaccine or mask mandates in force, nor any prohibitions of mandates. So in other words, you can put there's no law stating you can't put a mandate in, but at the moment there are none. Maine vaccine and testing regulations. Healthcare workers had to be fully vaccinated by October 29th of 2021. Nothing said about the healthcare masking requirements. Coming down here to, how about Massachusetts? Vaccine and testing regulations. Long-term care providers and home care workers were required to be vaccinated by October 31st of 2021. A vaccine mandate for state government employees was lifted May 11th in conjunction with the end of the state and federal public health emergencies. A similar rule for Boston City employees ended May 11th. How about mask regulations? Mask mandates covering long-term care facilities, medical facilities, prisons, and shelters ended on May 11th. Then Governor Charlie Baker lifted a statewide mask mandate for K through 12 public schools on February 28th of 2022. Now we come down to New Jersey. Vaccine and testing regulations. Workers in healthcare settings, including long-term care facilities, must show proof that they are up to date with their COVID-19 vaccinations, and on April 3rd, the Governor Phil Murphy listed a testing requirement for healthcare workers and testing and vaccine mandates for employees at places like long-term care facilities and such as group homes and prisons. A state requirement for universal masking in healthcare facilities is no longer in effect as of April 17th. All right, now we come to a big one. New York State. Vaccine and testing regulations. The State Department of Health said May 24th that it has begun the process of rescinding a vaccine mandate for healthcare workers. The order remains in place pending a formal repeal by a state public health board, which would not happen before September. But the health department said it will cease issuing citations against providers for failing to comply, a requirement that unvaccinated state employees submit to regular COVID-19 testing ended in June 2022. As of March 17th, a negative COVID-19 test is no longer required for visitors to enter a nursing home. On February 10th, New York City dropped the requirement that current and prospective municipal workers show proof of vaccination. A similar mandate for private sector workers was lifted on November 1st. How about masking in New York State? Mask regulations. As of February 12th, the state no longer requires masking in hospitals, nursing homes, and other healthcare settings. Individual facilities and health systems may set their own policies, and face coverings remain mandatory in New York City public hospitals. A statewide public transit mask mandate ended on September 7th, I believe, of last year. Let's skip down here to Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, vaccine and testing regulations. State health care employees and workers in high-risk care facilities were required to be vaccinated by September 7th, 2021, or undergo regular testing. New hires in such facilities must be vaccinated. Philadelphia requires city employee health care workers who interact with patients to be fully vaccinated. Vaccine mandates other city employees ended in May. Allegheny County, which includes Pittsburgh, and rescinded a vaccine mandate for county employees on May 18th. I believe the vaccine mandate on city employees in Philadelphia, I thought I read that that's over with, and I also thought I read the healthcare patients that needed to be, or the ones who interact with patients, I think that's going to be ending soon too as well, but I could be wrong. I mean, that is my own state, so anywho. And finally, let's end on Texas. Basically, Texas is another state that is basically banning vaccine regulations, mandatory vaccine to do something. Yeah, that's not allowed in Texas. And mask regulations as well. Yeah, Texas is a weird state. So they want to ban that stuff, but yet they continue the pandemic emergency in Texas. We can assume that's because Texas is on the border and they have concerns about COVID crossing the border. I don't know, but yeah, it's pretty much basically banned in Texas. And if you want to see the rest of the states, I know I didn't get to every state. Sorry if I did not get to the state that you live in. I will have a link to this down below, and you can read it for yourself. I thought I would just read some of the more common, more bigger states. New York State's a big state. That was a bellwether state at the beginning of the pandemic. And I thought I would tell you some of the states where masking and vaccine requirements are banned. Alrighty, folks, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more content like this, give the channel a thumbs up, or give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel down below. I will see you later on this afternoon for the daily pandemic update. Until I see you again next time, stay safe, everyone.